I welcome you all at our first ever webinar on military applications for artificial intelligence in South Asia. We are very delighted to have a very distinguished panel for today's discussion. Now let me introduce you to our speakers. Our first speaker, Air Vice Marshal Faiz Amir, is a former Vice Chancellor of the Air University, Islamabad. He has served in Pakistan Air Force for over 35 years. He remains one of the PF's most distinguished professionals, having held numerous key positions, including commanding the prestigious Combat Commander School. He has also served as Commandant of the National Security College of National Defense University, Islamabad. He holds a unique and broad-ranging of expertise over contemporary military affairs, as well as the impact of some of the latest technological developments in this diverse arena. Today, he will be speaking on the race in artificial intelligence and global military transformation. Our second speaker, Air Marshal Javed Ahmed, is currently the Vice Chancellor of Air University, Islamabad. He has previously served as the Director, Policy and Doctrine at Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, Islamabad. As Chief Project Director of the JF-17 fighter production, he has been closely associated with the development of some of the Pakistan military's most cutting-edge technologies, including the development and upgradation of key platforms. His specialist areas of research include analysis of aerospace development policies, doctrine formulation, implementation strategies, force postures, and artificial intelligence. He will be presenting his views on opportunities and risks posed by artificial intelligence in South Asia. Our third speaker, Ms. Saima Aman Syal, is a Senior Research Officer at the Center for International Strategic Studies, Islamabad. She is also the Associate Editor of the biannual journal CIS Insight. Ms. Saima has been a Visiting Research Fellow at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, USA, the Non-Proliferation Education and Research Center, South Korea, the Henry L. Stimson Center, USA, and the Sandia National Laboratories, USA. She has a postgraduate degree in Strategic Studies from National Defense University, Islamabad. She will be speaking on artificial intelligence and military modernization in India-Pakistan, implications for strategic stability. Before we proceed further, I would like to mention that this webinar will be conducted in the form of panel discussion, during which each speaker will be given 15 minutes. If anyone is having trouble hearing or viewing the webinar, or is having any form of connectivity issue, please do mention in the chat and we shall try our best to address these issues from our end. Kindly note that by default, mics of the attendees will be off. Only panelists will be allowed to use the audio and video function. If anyone from the audience would like to ask a question, they are requested to kindly use the chat option to type out their question. Please do include your name as well as your organizational affiliation along with your question. The questions will then be presented to our panel by the moderator during the question and answer session accordingly. While we fully encourage you to participate, we request you to please be brief in your questions. We shall try our best to ensure that all questions get answered within allotted time. Please further note that all the opinions voiced at the SVI platform are independent opinions of the speakers and audiences, not the official policy of the SVI. This is an open house activity which will be reported in media. If anyone would like to tag or post screen grabs of this event on their personal blogs, web pages, or social media, please do not forget to mention that the webinar was organized by the SVI. Thank you. Now I invite Dr. Zafar Iqbal Chima to give his welcome and introductory remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Haris, for making very elaborate comments about the webinar, as well as for the speaker's introduction. I'm very grateful for that. Distinguished participants, honorable speakers, dear friends, colleagues, dear students, it's my privilege to welcome you all to SVI's first ever webinar on a very important subject, the artificial intelligence role in South Asia's militarization. As you know that this is SVI's first ever webinar, but however, this is in continuation of the SVI's in-house seminar series, which we have been conducting very regularly. Some of you who have been present previously in our first introductory seminar on the artificial intelligence, we have invited very prominent persons on that very professional on that very subject. Artificial intelligence is becoming highly important. There's no standard definition of artificial intelligence, but to say it very briefly and very simply, this is the use and development and employment of contemporary electronic machines like computers, like robots, like telephones, like mobiles, to simulate human intelligence, to do those functions which human beings have been doing themselves, but they take a huge lot of time. Whereas these machines shortcut the time, they are very efficient, they are very proficient, they are very accurate, and the time factor is brought down very, very low. For example, I give you very crude example quickly. That if the early warning time between India and Pakistan is 3 to 5 minutes, if this issue is handled through artificial intelligence, it would be well addressed within that kind of a framework. So the artificial intelligence employment and use and development is now pervaded in the military affairs. It has directly impacted the conflict and warfare, and the military applications of these subjects are becoming very important. I'm not personally an expert on this subject. In fact, artificial intelligence is hardly my job. I have not really looked into that particular area. So therefore, we have requested 3 outstanding panelists on this very subject. They're highly qualified professional experts on this very subject, and I hope that lead us to a very lively debate on the role of intelligence, artificial intelligence, in militarization of the process between India and Pakistan. As Haris has already very elaborately introduced, we are lucky to have AVM Faiz Amir, the former Vice Chancellor of the Air University. We have Air Marshal Javed Ahmed, who is the current Vice Chancellor of the Air University. And then we have Saima Aman, a very growing young lady, developing good expertise on the CIS panel. So with that, I will not take very much time. I will leave it to experts to deal with subject from their point of view. But I will request first AVM Faiz Amir to kindly make his presentation on which is race in artificial intelligence and global military transformation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Zafar Iqbal Cheema, and thank you, Strategic Vision Institute, for giving us this opportunity. I've been asked to set the pace of the webinar by giving my views on the race in artificial intelligence and global military transformation. My topic has 2 distinct parts. First, the race among states in pursuit of artificial intelligence, and second, impact of AI on military affairs, that whether this transformational influence is revolutionary or evolutionary. I shall cover both these aspects in reverse order. That is, first I shall talk about the global military transformation and then the race among the states. Let me share my screen. I hope it's visible to all the participants.
Yes,
sir, it is. It is, sir.
Okay. To discuss the potential of artificial intelligence, let me place where AI is today and then take up the long-term goals of AI. The experts agree on 3 types of artificial intelligence and their definitions. And these are artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and artificial superintelligence. Gentlemen, all current AI systems fall into the category of narrow AI. And the most prevalent approach to narrow AI is machine learning. Machines learn by recognizing patterns in huge training databases. Currently, AI is valuable in achieving seamless integration of various sensors and platforms. Since these sensors and platforms generate huge databases, AI is exceedingly helpful and useful in rapidly collecting, analyzing, and disseminating vast amount of data. So AI is a boon to intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Moreover, since all semi-autonomous and autonomous weapon systems use platforms and sensors besides the weapons, so AI and its subsets like machine learning, artificial neural networks, and deep neural networks contribute towards their precision and efficiency. With this little background, I'm going to move on to see how AI is being used in transforming warfare. A report for US Congress titled as Artificial Intelligence and National Security, released in November 2019, highlights 7 AI applications for defense, visible on the left side of the screen. The order of priority is mine, and it is based on my visualization of impact AI-powered and AI-related capabilities would have on warfare. I shall just discuss just the first 3 and leave others for Q&A. Instead, I will add 2 other topics visible on the right side of the screen: AI and strategic stability, and AI in the hands of non-state actors. The wars of future are expected to be massively information and data intensive. In war, AI would offer the solutions to cope with exponential increase in the amount of data available for real-time analysis. As the AI systems mature and proceed further, these could provide real-time analysis of the battlefield. In the long run, I believe this could be particularly consequential. AI technology could lead to more informed military decision-making, and at the same time, shortening the decision-making cycle. AI will assist in disrupting the enemy observe, orient, decide, and act. That is an OODA loop, which would increase the speed and scale of military action. The crucial advantage these systems would have is that they would be able to think of strategies beyond human imagination. AI could use pattern recognition and prediction to fill in the gaps resulting from fog of war. US Air Force is developing a system for multi-domain command and control, which aims to centralize planning and execution of air, sea, land, cyberspace, and space-based operation. In near future, AI would be able to fuse data from all sensors in all of these domains to create a single source of information, also known as common operating picture for the decision makers. Such a system would eventually enable, and I quote, any sensor to provide data to any shooter from any service to achieve effects against any target, unquote. In my opinion, this single development will contribute towards all principles of war, like selection and maintenance of aim, offensive action, surprise, security, concentration of force, economy of effort, flexibility, cooperation, and administration. Next, I come to lethal autonomous weapon systems, commonly called LAWS. Lethal autonomous weapon systems are weapons that can detect, select, and engage targets with little to no human intervention. These killer robots use multiple sensors, computer algorithms, and onboard weapons to destroy targets. These systems increase the speed, reach, precision, and lethality of operations. Israel and South Korea have developed several types of autonomous stationary sentry guns which fire at humans and vehicles without human intervention. Then there are automatic turrets installed on military vehicles, which are called remote weapon stations. Missile defense systems such as Iron Dome also have autonomous targeting capabilities. The proliferation of autonomous weapon systems presents a range of risks to global security. Big controversy surrounds introduction of these weapons. Should a robot, no matter how advanced and intelligent, be allowed to make decisions where human lives are at stake? There are serious issues of law, ethics, and arms control that arise with the development of such capabilities. At present, no global consensus exists on how to manage these issues. US, China, and Russia remain unwilling to accept any serious constraints on development of these capabilities due to potential for future operational advantage. AI and cyber warfare. Recently, cyber attacks have become more targeted and powerful. Unfortunately, every security system built to protect cyberspace will eventually fail. There is no such thing as 100% secure system. For narrow AI systems, that is today's systems, safety failure are at a moderate level of criticality. However, for general AI, next step, failures would have a significant different impact. Similarly, a single failure of an artificial superintelligent system may cause catastrophic event without a chance for recovery. Since the aim of cybersecurity is to reduce the number of attacks on intelligent systems, cybersecurity perhaps is the discipline that could gain most from the introduction of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence and strategic stability. There is growing fear that lethal autonomous weapon systems responding to threats would increase the risks of unintended military conflict. This could undermine the foundation of strategic stability in many a situation. Improved targeting through coordination between sensors and platforms resulting from AI applications could enable precision strikes with low-yield weapons to destroy key command, control, and communication assets. This would also put at jeopardy nuclear force and space monitoring systems without the use of high-yield nuclear weapons. Similar capabilities could enable conventional non-nuclear precision weapons to execute strategic operations, which would make arsenals vulnerable, affecting strategic stability. AI and non-state actors. Today, global private sector investments in artificial intelligence are far greater than the public sector. AI is not being driven by governments, but rather the private sector. These commercial developments in artificial intelligence and machine learning could lower the barrier of entry for non-state actors. The convergence of new technologies will provide them access to relatively cheap, long-range, and autonomous weapons, including powerful small warheads, autonomous drones, and task-specific artificial intelligence. They will have access to far greater lethality at dramatically lower cost. Lethal autonomous weapon systems with terrorists will accord them greater destructive power with reduced manpower requirements. Tomorrow, biotechnology, which has enormous potential as a weapon, as we have seen, could fall in the hands of non-state actors. Visualize large databases becoming available to rogue elements, placing physical and economic security of large populations at risk. Imagine what would happen if machines under the influence of non-state actors were able to get onto a network, hunt for vulnerability, and search for the information they want. There is a need for international safety protocols for limiting the access of non-state actors to these systems. Ladies and gentlemen, so far we have discussed AI's potential to impart a number of advantages in the military context. However, AI military application also have some serious challenges. AI solutions may be unpredictable and also vulnerable to unique forms of manipulation. Let me place before you some of the challenges. AI algorithms often produce unpredictable and unconventional results. The present challenges of trust and understanding, these present challenges of trust and understanding for military leadership. There is a thought process that AI could operate with different assumption about the environment than human operators. There is something called as domain adaptability, or the ability of AI systems to adjust between two unrelated environments. System operators would have little awareness of varying perceptions of the system. Similarly, AI systems may be subject to algorithmic bias as a result of their training data. That is, the training data on which the machine is trained could have been inadequate in addressing all facets of a situation, or could have bias towards a particular solution. This could have significant implications for AI applications in a military context, particularly if such biases remain undetected and are incorporated into systems with lethal effects. Another aspect of unpredictability relates to AI systems that have minimal risk individually, but compound collective risk due to interactions between component systems. This is referred to as technical debt. Analysts warn that if militaries rush to field the technology prior to gaining a comprehensive understanding of potential hazards, they may incur technical debt. Speed as a disadvantage, speed of AI as a disadvantage. AI provides systems with the ability to react at gigahertz speed, that is 10 to the power raised to the power 9, which in turn could dramatically accelerate the overall pace of combat. Analysts argue that a drastic increase in pace of combat could be destabilizing, particularly if it exceeds human ability to understand and control events, and could increase a system's destructive potential in the event of a loss of control system. Explainability. All algorithms that have the highest performance are unable to explain their process. This explainability could challenge the military's ability to verify and validate AI systems prior to fielding and during operations. Due to their current inability to offer an explainable output, AI systems pose a dilemma of understanding and trust building for military professionals. Insufficient explainability leads to some serious human-machine interactions, such as goal alignment. Military professionals and the machines must have a common understanding of military objective while working on strategies and options. In a dynamic military environment, sometimes the goals change. The human and machine must adjust simultaneously based on a shared picture of current environment. Humans and machines must understand the boundaries of one another's decision space. Considering these challenges are the limiting factors that I have just put before you, though the list is not all inclusive, there's a broad range of opinions on how influential AI will be in the future combat operations. Most experts believe that AI will have an evolutionary and not a revolutionary effect on military affairs. Having covered how AI is going to impact military transformation, I shall briefly address the competition among the states in harnessing AI. As we look for the race among states in the field of artificial intelligence, we come across the stark fact that the proliferation of AI technology actually decouples military power from population size and economic muscle. This decoupling means smaller countries and even non-state actors could have a disproportionately large impact on the battlefield if they were able to harness this. In the current scenario, we see United States, China are leading the research effort in AI, with Russia desperately trying to catch up with them. In this race, US regards China as its most the field of AI. China released its roadmap on AI in 2017, titled as Next Generation AI Development Plan. It envisaged China firmly seizing the strategic initiative by 2020 and reaching world-leading levels of AI investment by 2030. President Vladimir Putin pronounced in 2017, I quote, "the one who becomes a leader in this affair will be ruler of the world." Russia is actively pursuing military AI applications with the primary focus on robotics. It has plans to robotize 30% of its military equipment by 2025. Leadership of all the three major powers identifies AI as a key technology that will be able to win wars of the future. US, China, and Russia excuse me, are investing in semi-autonomous and autonomous vehicles, including fighter aircraft, drones, ground vehicles, and naval vessels, which use artificial intelligence technologies. AI applications in this field are similar to those for commercial semi-autonomous vehicles like the driverless car of Tesla. Both US and China are testing AI capabilities to enable cooperative behavior among autonomous vehicles, commonly called swarming. US has successfully tested a swarm of 103 air-dropped micro-drones, and US Navy plans to test swarms of underwater drones. US and China do not openly admit having lethal autonomous weapon systems. Although there are no legal prohibitions on the development of such autonomous weapons, Russia in 2019 tested kamikaze drones that have the ability to independently acquire and assign target and attack it. Ladies and gentlemen, I will summarize my talk. We started with refreshing our knowledge of AI, discussed AI applications for defense, where we looked at certain depth at AI application in command and control, lethal autonomous weapons, cybersecurity, strategic stability, and non-state actors. Then we had a brief look at the race among the states for harnessing the potential of artificial intelligence. I will conclude by proposing that race for AI, just like any other arms race, would result in fielding weapon systems without comprehensive testing, putting human lives in danger and placing strategic stability at peril. I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very comprehensive, very elaborate, and a very highly learning experience that we have while going through your presentation. I'm sure that will elicit some important questions on the subject. I now request Air Marshal Javed Ahmed, the Vice Chancellor of the Air University, to kindly take his time and make a presentation on opportunities and risks posed by the artificial intelligence in South Asia. So over to Air Marshal Javed Ahmed.
Thank you, Dr. Cheema. Let me start by sharing my screen. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dr. Zafar Iqbal Cheema and many worthy participants of the webinar, including President CAS, Air Chief Marshal Kaleem. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to talk to you on this area. As we are all talking on Zoom, I think this is one of the applications of artificial intelligence. Because I've joined the education sector since the last 3 or 4 months, and we are grappling with online education. I think personally I have learned a lot in the last 3 or 4 months on how we can truly be online and still impart instruction. If you look at the topic, I've just added post-COVID and very small, just to let you know, because the environment is different. And it will have effects on how the world proceeds with its development after this. I will also cover only the broad aspects of the topic because of the time constraints, and also because I don't want my topic to deconflict with Ms. Saima, who has to come after me, and she's an expert in strategic stability. So I just don't want to diverge into those areas. Now, if you look at the topic, opportunities and risks posed by artificial intelligence, whatever A. Marshall Faiz has covered in the global perspective, I think the capabilities are universal. So you really don't, you can't limit them to a particular area. Whatever happens in the world, we will definitely be affected. South Asia will be affected. So we can consider that all elements or whatever is happening at the international forum will also affect the South Asian region. Because the world is interconnected, and artificial intelligence should not be viewed in isolation. Now, if just a few words on what I know we all understand how the COVID, post-COVID world order and what changes will it have, but I'll just cover few which may have particular applications to how the AI will develop further. We all understand the recession, which many of these all developing countries and even the advanced countries will go through. The buying power will reduce. Definitely the defense budgets will reduce, and this will affect on how you invest in the defense industry in future. However, for smaller countries, this could be an impetus even for the larger powers and smaller countries to develop a more effective system of non-contact warfare. So if you look at the post-COVID situation, maybe from contact, there is increased emphasis on non-contact warfare. Similarly, there can be a lot of effects financially, like will the FATF remain active? Will the IMF be effective? Will all those sanctions now really work? Is the world going back to basics and food, shelter, health? Is boots on ground the only answer? You know, all you need to do is to have people coughing and sneezing around the troops deployed in foreign countries, and maybe you don't have boots on ground anymore. I'll just tell you about the scope which I'll cover and the area which is encircled in red all around us, and the significance of the timelines. The circle depicts that in our area there is an influence of two major powers, like Avium Faiz covered, both China and US, which have interests and which have applications of AI being applied in our area. The timeline significance for the 2025 timeframe is the Indian elections which are coming up, and for the world which will definitely be grappling with coming out of COVID or developing or taking care of the recession which will be there. By 2035, if we consider the life cycle of the security apparatus, most of the equipment which is deployed in our region will be reaching obsolescence, and will be required to have new equipment, some sort of technology change. Similarly, by 2050, there will be major changes in terms of how technology develops and how artificial intelligence develops. Now we all understand how does AI influence national power. We are well familiar with the technological prowess and how it affects. But two or three things which I would like to cover. First, technological asymmetry is capability asymmetry. So you have to be technology savvy and have technology inducted in all your military domains so as to remain capable. And accordingly, the technology denial strategies, as they're applicable to conventional hardware, are also applicable to your developments in artificial intelligence. Countries will not have access to core technologies of artificial intelligence, those who did not have access to conventional systems. So if we say that Clausewitz said that war is nothing but a continuation of politics with the admixture of other means, maybe AI and technology in future is the answer. AI and the national security matrix, the traditional concepts, we're all familiar with aggression, mobilization, and the military-centric element. But in contemporary, it is the non-military dimension which leads. Now, AI has major impact on national security. As Aviam Faiz covered, it's a particularly attractive option for countries with less money to throw around the market, especially for Pakistan, because AI is a equalizer and a force multiplier. In terms of how this affects national security, I think data, we can talk about data in the Q&A session, because data now becomes the core area of which you have to protect and which you must have to develop artificial intelligence. In terms of military applications in the region, all around us, I will just cover how AI is being applied in the area towards our west and as well as towards the east. For Dr. Cheema, if you look at the Kashmir map, I've included the Indian occupied Kashmir in the map. If the Indians can include Gilgit-Baltistan, so I think we can also start to put Kashmir in our map. If we look to the west, Iran is engaged with the world AI leader, the US, and the entire dynamics is connected to the Middle East dynamics. If you look at Afghanistan, the Taliban and the Americans represent another model of how technologies have been used. China in the north, the runners-up in AI technology in the world, is affecting the regional dynamics. And on the east, we've already seen a lot of instability and how much money is being spent by India in acquiring new technologies, and as well as indulging in military adventurism, whether it be what happened in Swift Retort or Article 370 or the Kashmir suppression or the profiling of citizens and the Amendments Act. Now, Afghanistan is a very interesting model with 4 decades of turmoil and with technology only on one side. So I would say that Afghanistan has been a live testing ground for artificial intelligence, and Afghanistan was the range which developed a lot of robots, communication systems, UAVs, the Predator, the Global Hawk, Reaper, all were developed, all their intelligence systems, all intelligence systems, all AI was applied in Afghanistan. In future, probably Corona may have an effect of expediting the Americans leaving the Afghan soil, but that is still too early to guess. But that will probably set the stage for long-range autonomous intervention, which will continue in Afghanistan by the Americans. Iran is another model. We can always discuss, do sanctions make a country stronger, which is an ongoing debate. Iran has done a lot of indigenous work in space, in the military program, in their intelligent weapons, some very, very accurate strikes on Saudi oil infrastructure. However, the maturity of the systems of the Iranians is questionable. They shot down that Ukrainian aircraft a few months ago, and lately they shot at their own and sunk one of their own boats. So I think after the US is somewhat in control of Corona, all those applications against Iran, all those technology applications will again come in. The oil will bite for some times and the sanctions, but the Iranians have some capability which they will use. China has adequately been discussed by Aviam Faiz, so I'll not go into more details. But one thing which I would like to cover is that Chinese tackled the Corona with the help of artificial intelligence, and AI was a big player in the Chinese controlling Corona spread in China. Almost half of the AI startups in the world are in China. The 5G is moving on to the 6G technologies. Now that most Silicon Valley guys may be back, maybe contemplating coming back to China, I think they will develop much stronger. One thing which we must consider once we look at how AI is developing in the world, it very well may cause a split in the 2 systems which will be in use. The American systems, which some of the world will use, and the Chinese. And you could definitely have a split in technology once you have new systems coming in. Pakistan will have to decide on which camp to join or whether to keep its eggs in both baskets on both sides. A balance would have to be maintained. But AI and alignment with the Chinese in terms of development is definitely an option for Pakistan. In terms of AI strategies, if you look at this chart, and this was also alluded to AVM Faiz, we are only interested in the part of the Indians, and the Indian strategy, after some lag, they came out with this strategy in 2018. Their national strategy was announced in June 2018. Before that, a task force was made which had members from all the core groups of industry, which included Tata, national security representatives, academia, DRDO, atomic energy, so as to synergize their efforts. So the Indians have those strategies where they want to synergize those efforts and set a direction for future AI development in India. Now, what all capabilities do they have at present? Because if we talk of the region South Asia, I think India and Pakistan are the only two areas which I'll discuss today. The Indian market size, it has a $180 billion IT technology sector. 8% of the world's companies are Indian owned. They have 40,000 professionals, and the export business is $70 billion. Bullet 2, they have deep links with the Silicon Valley. Almost 2 lakh Indians are working in Silicon Valley. 40% of the techies in Seattle are Indians. In terms of the CEOs, almost 1,000 companies, the founders of 1,000 companies are in Silicon Valley, which costs around $40 billion, are Indians. The Google CEO, Sundar Pichai, Microsoft, Satya Nadella are all Indians. In terms of international cooperation, the Indians have full international cooperation. They have played their cards very well. India is propped up against China, but all those capabilities are used against Pakistan. So they have full support of the US, Israel, EU, no holds barred. Money and all those things are available. A status of the AI in Indian national security establishment, there's a heavy foreign investment. Most of the Indian networks are not indigenous. They have been invested by Western companies. The same is true for weaponry, space, and intelligence systems. In terms of opportunities of AI development, I think India has a lot of opportunities available because of their foreign collaboration. Indians have already started to offer space being vacated by some companies who wanted to leave China in the post-COVID environment. The Indians have offered them space to set up companies in India. So India in future is likely to emerge as an AI powerhouse. They have plenty of opportunities, they have the human resource, and they have the cash to do that. In the next elections, the Indian population will be more than China. That with the education level will also be a strength. The Indians have already developed MOOCs so that they can train most of the elders and elderly to understand what artificial intelligence is. In terms of challenges which the Indians have, I think the integration for a country like India will be the biggest challenge. All those systems involved in India, which they have bought with a lot of cash, belong to different and diverse countries. The OEMs are different. It will be very difficult for the US equipment to talk with the Russians. They are absolutely different systems. You can well imagine if the Indians have S-400 and they have the Rafale and they have the Chinooks, will they all talk to each other on one system? It will be a very, very difficult option. The other risk for the Indians is if you have so much access to technologies coming from abroad, there is less incentive to indigenize. If you have everything on a platter, then why indigenize? And we have this example where I always say that the JF-17 was developed faster than the Indian Tejas, because Tejas had all available, whatever you wanted, from your presentations all the way to the hardware which they installed in the aircraft was available from the West, and it was integrated. Whereas a lot of work in Pakistan was done indigenously, and that is how we took a lead. If you have better AI systems and you have the whole country automated, that is also a vulnerability. And that points towards the disruptive potential of artificial intelligence. If used well, it can cause major disruption. If you look at the last bullet, the case study of how whatever capabilities the Indian had and how they applied it last year in the military application, we can say they put their best foot forward by using the fourth largest military with all whatever they had. But what the results were very different. And the Pakistan responded, and we are well aware of how technologies were used on both sides. So I'll not go into the details. In terms of what Pakistan has, what is its market size? Pakistan has been consistent in its growth potential for several years. The IT export targets, the $10 billion was the target, which probably will be, by the end of the year, will be achieved. Pakistan, because of its resources, it's also a lucrative market. There's a lot of stuff which is produced low cost in Pakistan. In terms of IT and AI potential, there are 152 million subscribers in telecom. 40% of the population has access to 3 to 4G, and you have 35 million active social media subscribers. And we are all aware with the power of the WhatsApp. Commercially, Pakistan would cross $1 billion in exports, as I covered earlier, somewhere in this time. Since 2010, we have had 1,000 startups which came up in Pakistan, of which 67 have done internationally very well. In terms of demographics and business environment, the Pakistani population is young, 65% below the age of 30 years, 29% between 15 to 30. The IT domain is well suited to all these youngsters who do not have jobs. Maybe in the post-COVID environment, this will take off more. All you require to develop artificial intelligence is to have access to softwares freely available on the internet, a PC, and a reliable connection. However, our industry is nascent at present. That itself in Pakistan's environment is a big challenge. In terms of international links and cooperation, we all understand, being a Muslim nuclear power, the limitations which are imposed to us on technology. So we have only modest international linkages. The control regimes, especially with Western technologies, core technologies, are in place. So national security for Pakistan faces big challenges in terms, if you look at relying on powers outside Pakistan. Pakistan, because of its large population, has to guard against being exploited for data. Status of AI in the national security establishment, there's a lot of awareness in the services. All our strategic organizations are moving ahead on their own. There are startups in the country, there are linkages. But what was covered in the first presentation was the main threat which all those developments in Pakistan will face. Maybe it comes from the cyber element. Another element which has to be kept in mind is that obsolescence is a compulsion. After some time, you may not have manual systems available at all. And all what you will have available will come in the form of new technologies, new hardware, and new control regimes. Pakistan is awake to the challenges. There have been a lot of initiatives taken in the last 4 years, including the President's initiative. The world looks at Pakistan as a 220 million market of users. The government policies and follow up on all those procedures made will definitely help. This is a problem. Pakistan makes policies easily, but implementation is a serious issue in Pakistan. There's a lot of data being generated all over Pakistan, which needs to be centralized, which needs to be stored, which does not need to be shared with the powers abroad. The education drive in terms of opportunities is another thing. Since the last 3 months, I've been associated with how technology has been used for online education. This is just one element, but the universities and your academia has to be involved in development of artificial intelligence in Pakistan. And that is happening because a lot of youth now is interested. In terms of development challenges, the ecosystem has to be developed, which is very important. We do not have a reliable ecosystem to have AI all over Pakistan. The education system has to realign. In Europe, they've started to teach coding at very junior levels. Pakistan also needs to look at the literacy level at the primary school level. Similarly, there's an important it is extremely important that all senior management and a group of people at the hierarchy needs to be educated on artificial intelligence. This is a challenge in many developing countries where the hierarchy which deals with AI is not aware of what technology can do for them. So they all need to be educated on technology so as to take decisions about technology matters. Pakistan also has to, in terms of risks, Pakistan has to guard against brain drain. A lot of our startups, a lot of our youth have moved abroad. Maybe in the post-COVID environment, they all work from home, but they're all working for foreign countries. There have to be incentives for your youth to invest in this area. There is lack of international support. Data protection is an issue which I've covered. If you become more dependent on technology, the exploitability issue is also applicable to Pakistan. Some of the points which I said I will cover with you, and I'll leave the details to the Q&A session. First is we all need to be aware of the dual use of the technology and the limitations of artificial intelligence. Some were covered by AVM Faiz. We must be aware how to protect our data if we do not have storage which is indigenous. All our storage, if it has to be stored on Google and international with international vendors, that is a serious issue. Are we prepared for the next generation war, both offensively and defensively with AI applications? Is Pakistan prepared for defense against AI and autonomous weapons? Because most of our systems are conventional based. AVM Faiz covered some of the limitations of computer vision, data disruption, manipulation, bias. So I will not go into those details. AI is definitely a force multiplier, but it has to be linked with other core technologies. AI cannot be taken alone as a force multiplier or alone as a technology which you can apply it militarily. Imagine you have AI applications, but your battery runs out. So there are technologies, AI has to be always to be considered with other core technologies. In terms of way forward for Pakistan, I think the first is to invest in the education sector, as with the many of the powers abroad. In terms of universities, the universities have taken initiative. In the Yale University alone, you have a lot of interest of students in cybersecurity, in artificial intelligence. There are courses which have started, but once you move to the PhD level and you want to teach and you want to go into advanced matter, you find you do not have experts who can really take up artificial intelligence at the higher education level. We need to train our senior and junior decision makers. There is a requirement to change mindsets, cover the generation gap. The future force structures, whether they be to our military establishments, have to be seriously looked into. Uniforms have their own. If you are in uniform, you have certain limitations. There are limitations of continuity. There are limitations of growth. So maybe the services have to look at force structures in future where you have more involvement of the civilian sector and the academia in development artificial intelligence for military applications, for services. In case Pakistan does not indigenize, this will be a problem for all countries which do not indigenize. You have to have end-to-end product development so as to be secure in future technologies which will come your way. It will not be possible to have hardware imported and then developing your own software and expect that you will be secure. Data protection, diversifying resources, etc. is one element. To conclude, I will just cover some, throw some questions which we can take up in the Q&A session. Now, for Pakistan, it may not be a question of choice. It will be a compulsion to militarily look at the uses of AI, as all your conventional equipment will become obsolete. And the new equipment which comes in will not be without any software. It will be software based. It will have some sort of software embedded on which without control, it will be difficult to fight wars in future. The environment around us is very, very complex. There are numerous threats. There are no rules for AI. The world is yet to find what type of AI to develop. Will there be an action or any rules on lethal autonomous weapons? There are none, so it can be exploited. Pakistan has to navigate with a balanced mix of indigenization and efforts to collaborate, especially with the powers who are developing, especially with the new AI which is coming up, whether it be Chinese or the Middle East. Last of all, we should not get carried away by the capabilities of AI. All we need to remember is that AI is an algorithm. Algorithm has limitations. I know there's a lot of hype at the international level. You will find AI in all, and a lot of data which has come up, and a hype whether AI winters will come again, whether there'll be an end to development of AI, or whether the computer processing power on which AI depends so much will ultimately have a limit. So there are limiting factors to AI, and AI above all is an algorithm. It has to be looked after. It has to be looked at from that point of view alone. Thank you very much.
Marshal Javed, for making an excellent presentation on various dimensions of the AI and especially the risk posed and opportunities within South Asia. I think that sets the ground for a very lively debate at the end of the session. I now request Saima Aman, our last speaker, to speak on artificial intelligence and military modernization in India, Pakistan, implications for strategic stability. Saima Aman.
Thank you so much, sir. And Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I'd like to thank you and your excellent team at the SBI for this opportunity to sit in such a prestigious panel. I think the set has been excellently, the scene has been excellently set for me to talk about the implications on strategic stability rather than talking about the capabilities in themselves, which have lucidly been elaborated by the esteemed and worthy speakers before me. I will begin by talking about where Sir Javed left. And so I'll when we talk about conceptualizing military intelligence, I don't have a formal presentation to make, so I'll just be making a couple of points and then we can go into the Q&A. There are 3 points that I feel are very important and essential to be kept in mind when we talk about military artificial intelligence, as in from the perspective that where I'm coming from. The first is the game changer versus the force multiplier. So there's been a lot of talk of whether artificial intelligence is a game changer. I would agree with my earlier panelists in saying that it's a force multiplier and also a force multiplier for conventional nuclear force related capabilities. How? In that it would increase the speed, the precision, the data processing and analysis as a decision aid, and at the same time it would compress the decision making timing. So in that, it is interesting to see that it can both be stabilizing as well as destabilizing. That is an important point to keep in mind. The second point that I'd like to flag is about the secrecy versus the perception of an adversary's capability. Now, the AI's impact on stability, deterrence, or for that matter, escalation is a function of a state's perception of the capability. Because of the opacity about the level of integration of artificial intelligence in an adversary's military force systems or doctrines, AI could possibly increase the risk of, and I'd like to emphasize, possibly increase the risk of inadvertent escalation as a result of misperception or over-exaggeration of the threat by the adversary. And finally, so the third element that I'd like to talk about is this human-machine teaming or human control. As things stand now, for the foreseeable future, military AI will include a significant degree of human control, especially in the safety critical nuclear domain. And that is also an important point to keep in mind. When we talk about the military applications, the possible military applications of AI, they are at the operational level and at the strategic level. So at the operational level, and the earlier speakers have talked about it, I'll just flag them: autonomy, robotics, big data driven modeling, intelligence analysis to locate, monitor mobile missiles, submarines, mine troop movements. At the strategic level, early warning intelligence surveillance systems, reconnaissance systems, then command control communication systems, nuclear weapon delivery systems, then enhanced missile defense in terms of machine learning augmented ATR, which is automatic target recognition technology, conventional precision munitions, and which are able to then target strategic weapons. And then finally, enhancing the scope of the OODA loop, which Faiz Ahmed Saab talked about, and then AI advanced offensive and defensive cyber capabilities. Now, I had to say a little bit about the Indian developments in India about the military AI, but Sir Javed has elaborately talked about the subject. But I'd only like to flag that India had allocated as back as in 2018 some 30 billion rupees for its Digital India program. And the initiative was to promote artificial intelligence, all the emerging technologies, machine learning, 3D printing, and other digital technologies. And he had also talked about this task force that was established by the Ministry of Defense, which has stakeholders, a wide range of stakeholders from the startups and the other professionals and the defense. I'd like to talk about its recommendations that it makes. So it makes, and I'll talk about some of the three prominent recommendations that it makes. The whole report was not made public, but this is what I got from the MEA's website. It states that India should become a significant power of AI in defense, especially in aviation, naval land systems, cyber, nuclear, and biological warfare for both defensive and offensive needs, and including counter AI needs. Secondly, it says that specific policy and institutional interventions are required to regulate and encourage robust AI-based technologies for the defense sector. And thirdly, it says that the government should work with the startups and commercial industries on using AI for defense purposes. Now, the task force also considered AI in relation to the lethal autonomous weapons systems, and it stated in the air, on the ground, underwater. It went into doing some scenario building, simulated war games, trainings, etc., regarding unmanned surveillance, cybersecurity, intelligence, reconnaissance, and aerospace security. On the doctrinal side, and India's land warfare doctrine states that, and I quote, "At the core of India's future military planning would be the effective integration of soldiers, AI, and robotics into war-fighting systems that exploit the existing capabilities for the success in battle." So India is likely to incorporate in its armed forces the technological tools to operate various self-regulatory combat systems equipped with the AI, including military surveillance, drones, combat robots, other destabilizing high-speed autonomous weapons. Talking about some of the possible applications of military AI in Pakistan. Now, AI-led applications can improve the capability of Pakistan's offensive and both the offensive systems, both the cruise and ballistic missiles in terms of their precision, speed, maneuverability. This could be a possible choice for Pakistan. This is because the geographical contiguity of India and Pakistan creates serious challenges for the survivability of nuclear forces, because proximity makes them harder to hide and easier to strike with nuclear as well as conventional means. Compressed decision-making timeframes and first strike fears by India can enhance the interest as well as the need for investment in early warning and ISR capabilities. ML, which is machine learning, could help improve the performance of early warning radars for signal processing and could be used for enhancing situational awareness in space. Another application of AI and machine learning could be possibly in the situational awareness of the strategic assets. So Pakistan has this National Command Center, which has fully automated strategic command and control support system, which enables the decision making at the NCC to have round the clock situational awareness of the strategic assets during peacetime and during crises. So as per the official statement, all the deployment and the employment is centrally controlled by the NCC, and this can then help reinforce the assertive control of nuclear weapons during peacetime as well as in the crises. Furthermore, AI systems are already being used in strat organizations, even in the defense organizations, for security purposes, such as access control using thumb impressions, retina scans, digital retina scans, facial recognition softwares to restrict access to highly sensitive security installations. Now I'll talk a little bit about the integration of AI in military force systems and its implications for strategic stability. First, a little bit conceptually, and then in the later part on how it might affect the nuclear postures. Any technology is neither good nor bad in itself. the effect that it generates depends on its particular application in strategy and doctrine, which would determine whether it strengthens or it undermines the strategic stability. The integration of AI in nuclear force related systems could enhance accuracy and reaction times and the overall performance of strategic offensive as well as the strategic defensive systems. And hence the impact on strategic stability can both be stabilizing, either stabilizing or destabilizing, negative or positive. And instability inducing impact of AI could be in the field of precision and counterforce targeting. Advances in precision targeting, along with the enhanced ISR capabilities in an adversary's arsenal, could create challenges for a secure second strike and increase fears of a preemptive strike. Even an increased ability to target strategic assets with conventional precision strike capabilities like hypersonic or, for that matter, missiles with ATR, enhanced through AI, could heighten the instability, especially in the crisis situations. These type of weapons could be employed for preemptive counterforce owing to their speed and precision. Another example, it could be autonomy applied to underwater drones, then could be used in anti-submarine warfare. And this could be a challenge for the assured second strike capability, which is in the current times considered to be a great stabilizer. Now in the South Asian deterrence equation, these propositions might sound to be somewhere in the distant future, but given the pace of technology transfers that is happening in India, and Sajaved talked about it, by some of the leading arms exporters, it is indeed a threat to watch for. More prominent is the threat from systems like P8I Poseidon, a submarine hunting platform that can create incentives for targeting an adversary's secure second strike capability at sea. An enhanced capability of such a maritime patrol aircraft through integration of ML in terms of detection, relaying of such information to surface and subsurface platforms, enhanced anomaly detection with precision targeting platforms like supersonic cruise missiles on board, would lead to an increased incentive by the operator to risk targeting submarines carrying nuclear weapons or run through nuclear reactors. As of the year 2019, Indian Navy operates 8 maritime patrol aircrafts with its Ministry of Defense, which is approving another 10 to be delivered this year. Cyber warfare is another domain where the AI could affect strategic stability. AI could help cyber defenders monitor the intrusions and detect anomalies in the system. These improvements in cybersecurity could help protect the critical infrastructure, including but not limited to command, control, and communication systems. It could potentially strengthen regional and strategic stability. However, the catch is that the same cyber means could be used to inject misinformation in the system using deep fakes through social media platforms as well. This have serious crisis initiation and escalation implication for a region like South Asia. The recent crisis after the attack on Pulwama on 14th February 2019 amply demonstrated how easily the information manipulation can lead to escalation in the South Asian scenario. Since I was supposed to talk about the military developments as well as the AI's impact on strategic stability, I'd like to talk about the implications that this could possibly have for the nuclear force postures. Because a point that I'd like to re-emphasize, and I've made it earlier, is that it is at the end of the day the doctrines that would drive the use of artificial intelligence, since it's a force multiplier, could be used in either way, as for instability, inducing instability or stability. The challenge that are raised by the applications of artificial intelligence to nuclear related systems, coupled with compressed decision-making time, would have implications for nuclear force postures taken by Pakistan as well as its adversary India. Stable mutual deterrence requires that both nuclear powers have credible and survivable nuclear forces. Currently, Pakistan relies on concealment and mobility as a means of ensuring survivability of its nuclear arsenal. However, the integration of AI with India's nuclear force-related systems is likely to accentuate the challenge of maintaining a sufficient second strike force for Pakistan, which could in turn then lead Pakistan to invest either in robust defensive systems or increase the number of mobile launch systems that can avoid detection. An overall assessment of the nature of strategic stability in South Asia shows that India's doctrine has shifted towards counterforce and preemption. preemption. Recent trends in weapons acquisition and developments in the Indian nuclear arsenal complement this line of thinking. A debate on shift in force postures is incomplete without referring to these trends of arms acquisitions, as well as advancements in the strategic offensive and defensive technologies in India, which would later alter the existing strategic balance in the region. India is investing in developing as well as deploying an integrated multi-layered ballistic missile defense system. In 2019, it struck a deal of 5.2 billion for 5 regiments of the S-400 Triumph surface-to-air missile from air defense missile system from Russia. It has 2 domestic programs underway for low and high altitude missile defense interception, which is the AD and the PAD, the Advanced Air Defense and the Prithvi defense vehicle respectively. Then additionally, India is in the process of co-developing Barak 8 SAM system with Israel. It has signed a contract of $1.1 billion with Israel for the supply of an upgraded version of Barak 8 air defense system, which was in November 2009. The third element that I'd like to talk about are the satellites, which are considered to be the most potent tool for ISR and successful counterforce. Hence, they are dubbed as the eyes in the sky. India has rapidly been growing its space program with an increased focus on dedicated military satellites for surveillance, reconnaissance, and communication. Currently, it is approximately operating 6 to 8 satellites, which are dedicated military satellites. These have varied missions ranging from signals intelligence, detection of enemy radars, to that of communication satellites, with which Indian Air Force is using to upgrade its existing ground control stations to satellite control for military UAVs. The application of AI with satellites seeking situational awareness and through precision-armed unmanned aerial platforms, this is a combination which could make counterforce an unavoidably attractive option. Also in 2019, India carried out testing of anti-satellite weapon technology. It conducted an ASAT test targeting one of its own satellite in the Earth's low orbit. This ASAT capability means that in future, India will be able to target its enemy's military satellites as well as long-range strategic missiles. The Indian Space Agency has launched one of 4 satellites from a single rocket, which demonstrated the capability to carry out MIRVs, which is multiple warheads on a missile, a ballistic missile. India is currently enhancing both its strategic as well as its conventional precision strike capability for targeting deep within Pakistan's territory, which could possibly be for preemptive counterforce. The cruise missiles are the leading capability being developed in this regard. In a Russo-Indian venture, India has developed subsonic cruise missile BrahMos, which is currently earlier had a range of 290 kilometers when India was not part of the MTCR. Now it is being extended to ranges beyond 600 and speed of Mach 6. It's currently developing supersonic version of this missile, like I already said, and BrahMos could be deployed on India's Su-30s, extending its reach for possible counterforce rules. And India is also developing indigenously another subsonic missile, Nirbe, which would have a range of 1,000 kilometers and would be capable of carrying a 300 kg warhead. Now, the recent development in India's arsenal, space, precision strike capabilities create incentives for a preemptive counterforce by India, generating new pressures for Pakistan's nuclear posture and for strategic stability in the region. India's Joint Forces Doctrine states in this regard that the Tri-Services Strategic Forces Command controls all of India's nuclear warheads and delivery systems. This is a very unprecedented statement because earlier we knew that the warheads are kept separate from the delivery systems. This has implications for the nuclear alert levels. So this essentially means that India's nuclear posture is no more recessed and it is a ready arsenal. The shift from recessed deterrence to readiness creates pressures for the decision-making time to order a first strike, as well as create pressures for Pakistan to change it, to lead in a direction to change possibly its nuclear alert levels. This would challenge the crisis stability. Now, finally, some of the conclusions that I'd like to put forth and some of the thoughts that I'd like to leave you with is that AI and machine learning in a nuclear context is a double-edged sword. That is, it can have both stabilizing and destabilizing implications for strategic stability. ML and autonomy would not revolutionize nuclear strategy. However, it would lead to a notable evolution in the conduct of the nuclear enterprise. Also, in nuclear strategy, propositions of how escalation might play out in crisis or in war are untested.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you please conclude?
Yes, I'm on the
Can you
conclusion, sir.
conclude? Yeah. Please conclude.
So, in nuclear strategy, propositions about how escalation may play out in crisis or in war is untested since a nuclear war has not been fought. So, the decision support systems would have limited and biased data sets. Military doctrines will directly inform the building of AI. That is why it is fundamentally important to see how each country develop its doctrine and strategic force posture, because that is how it will use AI to integrate it in the nuclear strategy. And the final thought is about the several stability-inducing impact of AI in terms of enhancing situational awareness about the security of nuclear assets, early warning system, resilient C4I systems, and in arms control verification. When it comes to AI, ML, and autonomy, the lack of an effective ecosystem involving cooperation like startups, educational institutions, defense policy experts, defense manufacturers, it's sort of missing in Pakistan or is not up to the level that it should have been. Pakistan's military and strategic community should focus on research and development in this domain to acquire a competitive edge and enhance the defense preparedness. In the strategic realm, the technology integration should be guided by the objective of maintaining a safe and credible deterrence for the state's defense. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's a very comprehensive and a very elaborate presentation and the coverage of the very subject. I think that has set the ground for a very lively discussion. We will have an interactive session. I think we know straightway go